We have always been a family that valued vacationing together, especially after my wife and I moved to working from home. Last summer, we decided to rent a house in a more secluded area, something different from the usual rush. It was an old property, surrounded by dense trees a few kilometers from a lake. The house looked like it came out of a 70s real estate catalog, with solid wood furniture, shag rugs, and pastel-colored floral wallpaper. We were looking for tranquility, and that place seemed perfect to escape the routine. Myself, my wife Emily, and our two children, Ethan, 12, and Sophie, 8, arrived full of expectations. On the first day, everything seemed normal. We packed our things, explored the surroundings, and ended the night with a simple dinner. The house had its charm, although it was a little worn out by time. During the night, however, something strange happened. I was almost falling asleep when I heard a soft, childlike laugh echoing down the hallway. I thought it was Sophie, so I got up to check. When I got to her room, she was fast asleep, and so was Ethan. I went back to bed trying not to think too much about what I heard, but that sound kept hammering in my head. Emily, noticing my discomfort, asked what had happened, but I preferred not to mention anything. "Just insomnia," I mumbled, and tried to sleep. The next morning, I decided to let the laughing incident go. Maybe it was the noise of the wind or some animal outside. Emily and I were busy making coffee while the kids played in the garden. The house felt more welcoming in daylight, and I even started to think I was overdoing it the night before. Everything went well until the end of the afternoon, when we noticed that one of the chairs in the dining room was out of place. I thought it was strange because we had packed everything in the morning, and the children were playing outside all the time. "It must have been Ethan or Sophie," Emily said, but both denied it when I asked. Even so, I pushed the chair back to the table and let it go. At night, things started to get stranger. While we were watching a movie in the living room, the hallway light flickered a few times before going out completely. Ethan commented that it looked like a scene from a horror movie, but we laughed and kept watching. Later, as we were getting ready for bed, I heard footsteps upstairs. It was a light sound, as if someone was walking slowly. I went upstairs to see if the kids were out of bed, but they were both fast asleep. The feeling that something was wrong began to weigh down. When I returned to the room, Emily noticed my nervousness. "Are you okay?" I just shook my head, not knowing how to explain. On the third night, I began to feel restless. Something in the house seemed to be wrong, but I couldn't pinpoint what exactly. We were all having dinner together when Sophie put down her fork and asked, "Who is the girl you saw last night, Dad?" The silence in the room was immediate. "What girl, Sophie?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. She shrugged as if it were obvious. "The girl you went to see when you left the room. I heard you walking down the hall and talking to someone." My mouth became dry. I hadn't spoken to anyone, and the only laugh I heard that night has echoed in my head ever since. I decided to investigate further. After putting the children to bed, I began to explore the rooms that we had not yet used. I opened closets, looked behind furniture, trying to find anything that could explain what was going on. It was in the guest room, hidden behind a panel that looked out of place, that I found something. It was a small old wooden box with worn edges. Inside it, there, were old rolls of film and a manual projector, all dusty. What caught my attention immediately was a label on one of the rolls, Summer 1995. I was torn between curiosity and fear. I decided not to tell Emily anything at that moment. Instead, I hid the box in our bedroom closet, intending to check it out the next day. The next morning, I waited until Emily and the kids went out to explore the lake. He said he needed to stay to sort out some work emails, but he was actually looking forward to seeing what was on the rolls of film. I mounted the projector on top of the living room table and, with some difficulty, fitted the first roll. The image flickered on the white wall in front of me, showing a smiling couple sitting on the same couch where we had watched the movie the night before. Their clothes were clearly from another era, maybe from the 90s. Until then, it seemed just a common memory of former tenants, but then the mood changed. On the next roll, the couple didn't look so happy anymore. They were sitting on the same couch, but the man held the woman's hand tightly as if trying to comfort her. Her eyes were fixed on something off camera, her face pale with fear. Then the camera panned to the hallway. One door, the one in the master bedroom, was slightly open, and an indistinct figure seemed to peek through the crack. It was like a shadow, but there was something wrong with the way it moved, as if it was frozen in a strange position. When the movie was over, I sat there, frozen. The silence of the house now seemed overwhelming, as if something was watching me. I wanted to stop there, but curiosity spoke louder. I put the next roll on the projector, and what I saw made me freeze. It was another couple, this time with a small child, perhaps Sophie's age. They were in the kitchen in the exact same place where we had breakfast every morning. The child seemed to be playing with something on the floor while the parents were talking. Everything seemed normal, until suddenly the child looked directly at the camera, her eyes wide as if she saw something behind her. The footage flickered at that moment, but for a split second, something appeared at the back of the kitchen. A standing figure, tall and indistinct, almost humanoid but blurred as if it didn't belong there. I turned off the projector with shaking hands. I couldn't watch it anymore. I went upstairs to get some air, but what I saw as I passed through the hallway left me paralyzed. One of the dining room chairs was there at the top of the stairs, facing directly toward me. I knew I hadn't left anything there. I ran downstairs, pushing the chair back into place. When Emily and the children arrived, I tried to act normal. But Emily noticed something wrong. "You are very quiet," he commented. I just shook my head. I didn't have the courage to tell anything. Still, that night, I decided that we couldn't stay there any longer. That night, I did my best to stay calm, but every little sound in the house kept me alert. The kids were asleep, and Emily was reading a book next to me, but I couldn't relax. Around 2 in the morning, I heard the sound of footsteps upstairs again. This time, they were clearer and more constant, as if someone were deliberately walking from one side to the other. I got up slowly, trying not to alarm Emily, and grabbed a flashlight from the nightstand. When I went up the stairs, the footsteps stopped. The silence was almost unbearable, heavy, as if the house was holding its breath. I got to the hallway and noticed that the door to the children's room was ajar. Dread took hold of me, but I opened the door slowly. Ethan and Sophie were there, sleeping peacefully. I sighed in relief, but when I turned to leave, I saw something that made me freeze. On the opposite wall, above the headboard, there were small handprints, soiled with something dark, like soot. They weren't there before. I went downstairs quickly, waking Emily up and telling her we needed to leave immediately. She was reluctant at first, but when she saw my state, she didn't argue. In less than 15 minutes, we were all in the car driving to a hotel in the nearest town. The next morning, while Emily and the children rested at the hotel, I decided to return to the house on my own to pick up our things. It was still dawn, and the property seemed strangely calm in daylight. I went in with my heart racing, determined to get everything as fast as possible. I went straight up to the children's room and started packing the clothes. It was then that I realized that the closet door was ajar. Inside, hanging on the coat rack, was a children's dress that didn't belong to Sophie. It was white, stained, in places, as if it had been left there for years. I slammed the closet shut and continued packing the rest. As I walked down the stairs, I heard a sound coming from the living room. The projector he was on, throwing images at the wall. I didn't remember leaving the last roll in the device, but there it was, running by itself. The image showed my family, exactly as we had arrived on the first day. Me, Emily, Ethan, and Sophie entering the house, laughing and carrying our bags. But in the lower right corner, almost imperceptible, a dark figure was there, looking directly at the camera. It was the last straw. I turned off the projector and ran away, leaving behind whatever was in that house. On the way back to the hotel, I promised myself that I would never return to that property. A few days later, out of pure curiosity, I researched the place on the internet. It didn't take long to find forums and old news. Other tenants had reported similar experiences. Laughter in the middle of the night, furniture moving, and even figures in the film. Some mentioned disappearances, stories that have never been officially confirmed. To this day, I don't know what happened in that house, but one thing is certain: we will never rent a place again without researching first.